When people hear we are back, they think Potatoes Gang. And many quickly think Washington and think of such television programs that are fairly similar in their approach, like McLaughlin and Company, like Capital Gang. But the truth is that Potatoes Gang is really a reality show that came, well, to television in a different kind of way. Why is it a reality show? Back in the early 80s, when I first returned from graduate studies in America, about 1982, I was fortunate to live in a nice bungalow in Surulere on Eric Moore Close. And it became a kind of melting pot, a kind of stop place for many of the bright, upwardly mobile, young intellectual types in Lagos. And so on their way back from work, many would just drive into my home, toss their jackets to one corner, and in our shirt sleeves, we'll all begin to debate Nigeria over a beer, over a glass of red wine. What can we do about Nigeria? Years later, that became Potatoes Gang, and we are back.
Who is a regulator? And just what role do these agencies play in our economy? On today's episode of Potatoes Gang, we'll look at the challenge of regulatory risk and managing the ailing sectors of the economy. Stick around with us, don't go anywhere.
Gentlemen, there's this challenge of regulatory risk and managing the ailing sectors of the economy. We have seen almost every sector of the economy is, failing one way or the other. The airlines, the manufacturing sector, and all that. And the role of the regulators is to make sure that these sectors of the economy stay alive, so that people will retain their jobs, businesses will grow, tax will be paid, government will make more money. But we find that government is looking for money, and if care is not taken, they will start, taxing the unemployed.
Well, it's such an important subject that we are sort of avoiding discussing in Nigeria. The big challenge of Nigeria for me is that many of the things we need to have a conversation so that we can sort out and help us move forward. We are shy of engaging on. It almost reminds you of the point at this conference at which a number of African heads of states and former heads of states were present. I think the thing has gone viral. And Thabo Mbeki and Baka, former president of Tanzania, spoke on this subject of leadership in Africa. And we say that, we need leadership to end poverty, we need leadership to get more participation of women, we need leadership to do X, Y, and Z. But we, as African leaders, are not doing those things. Somehow, we are scared to speak the truth to each other that we're not doing right as leaders. And he referred to General Obasanjo and said, you President Obasanjo, the African Peer Review Mechanism, what did it achieve? You this, you that. Fantastic conversation. But that defines us really, because we're not discussing what we should be discussing. Many times, regulators create more problems in the economy than any other players. And government agents acting in their capacity as policymakers often do more damage than promote. Even though that's not their intention, they don't want to do damage. But because of how we select people who go into those roles, because of the limitation of their understanding, say, that person is my enemy, I want to hurt his bank. Or this part of the country doesn't have enough banks. We want to create a problem so that we can win a bank for this part of the country. In the end, you create a systemic problem, and it goes on. So there are a lot of systemic problems that are being created in the economy. We're suffering. Aviation sector, classic example. We've got all these regulatory issues that we're not dealing with properly. Sector is in crisis. What are the consequences? So we nationalize sometimes. So we privatize. Or we have an agency of government take over.
Yes.
How is it managed after they take over?
we create AMCOM to.
Yeah, that's part of it. So how is it managed after AMCOM has taken over? Does it usually lead to an improvement in that sector, or do things get worse? I think these are critical things I think that we should engage with.
I think one of the most important roles of a regulator is standardization. And it's all about procedures, it's all about controls. It should be such that the institution of the regulatory institution should have such embedded policies, procedures, and controls that the individual at the helm of affairs, his own biases are subsumed. And we don't have those kind of, we find that a whole institution is swayed by the bias of a single individual. And that is not the way a regulatory agency should operate. And to be the head of a regulatory agency, there are certain personality profiles that you must take. That you are intelligent or experienced is not enough. You must have the ability to be unbiased, and that is not a common quality to find. Bias ruins regulatory agencies. You can't be biased because everything must be standardized. I mean, let's look at the Standard Organization of Nigeria. That's their name. You standardize everything so that there's predictability. I know that if I meet these minimum standards, my product will go through. Yeah. If I do not, it should not be subject to anything. It should not be.
Yes, I might agree with you because in the airline industry today, we are suffering very seriously because of overregulation. There's too many regulations. Sometimes you don't know who to turn to.
Yes.
You don't even know who to answer to. In most cases, just like the professor said, because I don't like this individual, no, he must be out. So that somebody that will fit what I believe in can go in. You all can see what is going on in the industry, in the airline today. AMCON has taken over ARIC. Yes, there's a lot of management problem in ARIC, but that's sure, there's no doubt about that. Even in ARIC themselves, we have a lot of expatriates in ARIC that ought not to be there. What are they doing here in Nigeria? Sometimes I kind of imagine. So where are the regulators that allow these people to come in and take the position of what Nigerians can do better? Right. Do you understand me? So if you look at it, to me, I think we have to be more serious with ourselves.
What about the fund that was given to
aviation sector?
Aviation sector.
Well, they used to have an aviation.
Are they assessing it or what?
Nigerian airline has no access to no funds as I speak. Do you understand me? Yeah. And it goes on. For example, I'm in the airline industry. Now I'm an advocate of agricultural movement in Nigeria. Now look at this. African Union, they agreed within the member nation to budget 10%.
Yeah, Maputo.
Exactly.
Maputo
to
10% for agriculture.
To agriculture. Okay, now 10%. Here in Nigeria today we have recession. We are looking at moving towards agriculture to pull us out of the recession. So that means we have to budget more than 10%. Our budget, I think, proposed budget is 7.3 trillion. That means 703 billion naira ought to go to agriculture. If we want to use agriculture to pull ourselves out of the recession, maybe we'll start looking at about 1 trillion naira. What do we budget? 92 billion. Yeah. Are we not clowning? We are clowns.
You know,
and then there are specific issues that come from challenges that I know of in the industry, for example. Okay, so ARIC is in crisis. It's taking over. But ARIC not operating certain flights have consequences for the evacuation of agri produce from Nigeria. This is critical for trying to build that up.
That is a serious issue here because now the off-takers that buy agricultural product from Nigeria, they can't get their supply because ARIC is not functioning.
Yes.
So from the airline now, it affects agricultural people and also to affect unemployment and for incomes and so on and so forth. Now, we have a lot of off-takers in Europe. They want a lot of vegetables, perishable from Nigeria. They can't get it. They are suffering. And there's no option. British Airways is not an option because of their time of flight doesn't suit what the market demands. Yeah. Do you understand me? And I'm not calling on the federal government. We need to find something to do about ARIC getting back on the flight to London and New York. This is a national crisis now. Let me put it that way.
Aero is also down.
No. Yes, Aero is down.
But because of the international operations of ARIC relative to moving agri produce.
A lot of Nigerians are losing millions of dollars. Yeah. We are losing faces because most of these off-takers are moving to Ghana and Kenya.
We're going to come back to this because it's a very important issue. We'll take a break. When we come, we'll have to deal with that.
Yeah, we'll be right back shortly.
Agriculture is one area that has suffered from poor regulatory implementations. But just how do we go about standardizing the aviation sector? Let's head to the streets to find out more about this.
When the government is saying that way, it will be reduced. We don't want people that are just striving to get there.
Anything that our government can do to support or help these people grow or help this country be better should be done. There are so many things in this country that our government could actually help those manufacturing companies with. Our government needs to focus on them and try to help them grow and try to help them help their factory come up back and start working.
The NEPA bill, you have to, that power system, you have to work on it. If you work on that power system, everything will be going smoothly. Because most of the what we do in this Nigeria is we depend on power. That is why we are having that problem. We have to, the only first thing that you can tackle in this Nigeria is power. After power, we now look. What I suggest in Nigeria is it's only Nigeria that will know your problem that you cannot solve your problem. Because I believe when your problem is solved, when you know your problem, it has been solved already. But it's only Nigeria because our problem is power. Before coming in of what do they call this, Buhari, they said okay, when it comes in, it's going to do the power. Everybody knows that power is this, but at the end, you just see that they cannot do the power. That's the main problem we're having in Nigeria. If our power, the power is working, everything will be fine.
And let me just take power, for example. I think power, the best way is just for government to have our own refineries. I think that is just what will solve it. Going, exporting, importing crude oil and everything will not solve it, but just to refine our refineries. And I think that is just what we need right now to make our economy better, because without power, so many things cannot be done. Look at all the technicians, the artisans, everybody need power to do their daily activities. And without that, even those that are doing their own businesses, they run on 24/7 generator, and that is a lot of money nowadays when you have to convert it. Talk about diesel. Diesel is crazy. Talk about PMS, 145 naira. Not everybody can afford it. I can't remember the last time I have electricity in my area, Arepo. It's really, really terrible. And I think government really needs to do something about it. More importantly, we should fix our own refinery. And I think it will do us a lot.
You know, the airline is not the only sector that is ailing. Manufacturing in the 80s used to contribute about 14% to the GDP, but now it's less than 4%. And policies favoring importation as against domestic manufacturing. And the manufacturers are crying. The power is an issue and all that. You know, and that's this because the tariff, for example, customs, you know, they're a major hurdle. A major problem to manufacturing in Nigeria.
I mean, if you go to the subject of power, which is central to all development, all modern societies,
Yes.
and see the role that regulators have played in keeping down the power sector. You know, between 1999 and today, Nigeria has spent ostensibly more money on power than is required to power all of Africa, literally. And we don't have power. Now, if you talk to people who are playing, whether they are Gencos or Discos or anybody, you will see the failure of the role of the regulator in creating an enabling environment, which is why government keeps pumping resources, because the power sector of its own should be so attractive commercially that you don't need government money to go into that sector to make it work. But because the regulatory framework is not working, it's government that's putting in a lot more of the resources, and we know the way government resources flow. So it's not doing the needful,
Yes,
and we're suffering.
I have this knowledge about once you generate power from generation plants, you must have to put it on the grid.
On the grid.
So you see, that's a very serious issue here, because once you put it on the grid, you can't get it back. So if a state government, let's say Delta state government, now decide to generate power for their people, the regulation says you have to put it on the grid and we'll give it back to you. And on transportation by the of a current on the grid, each mile you go, you lose
Exactly.
the current. So there are so many of these issues. So if you look at the power generation in Nigeria, I believe it has total overhaul.
The starting point is decentralization.
Period.
And,
The power sector is a totally different kettle of, it's a totally different kettle of fish. I think if we do power alone, we can do this for 2 or 3 weeks. But back to the regulators, you find that for everything we're discussing around the economy, there's a high degree of interrelationship and correlation between regulators. So you find we're discussing power, there's a regulatory agency that covers power. If you're talking about importation or manufacturing, there's the Standards Organization of Nigeria, among others. But if you're manufacturing, you're importing raw materials as well. And there's a regulatory agency around the distribution and availability of foreign exchange. So all these regulators need to interact, and there needs to be a cohesive roadmap. Though in the papers, we saw that some Chinese individuals were arrested for importing substandard tires, about 5 million tires. How do 5 million tires get into the country, pass through everything into a warehouse that if a whistleblower did not play a whistle, we wouldn't have known? Those things have an impact on the larger economy. The regulators need to be able to, we need to be able to hold regulators accountable, and where something goes wrong, there has to be some punitive measure. I've never come across in the last 15, 18 years of my career where a regulator was sanctioned for doing something. Telecoms, the same thing. So you find that in every area we have a problem, there must have been a regulatory failure. Not just failure for an incident, but the fact that you've not done your job over a period causes decay in the system, and then the infrastructure, the policy and procedural and control infrastructure collapses, such that when things go wrong, they go very, very wrong. And then to retrace yourselves to fix it becomes a problem. Look at the banking sector. The CBN has a job to play for every bank that has a major problem. Central bank inspectors are there twice a year. You can't miss something for 3-4 years consistently. It's not possible.
No, because central bank had the challenge over the year before, I think before Soludo came. There was a disconnect. Those being regulated and the regulators. It's like in the financial institution, the people working there are smarter than the regulators working in the regulatory agencies. So what happens is that, they are not able to understand, they're on top of the situation. So what Charles Soludo did was to recruit more people from the banking sector to come into the CBN so that they will understand. So supervision improved a bit, and then during Sanusi's period, I don't know what happened. But again, we see that such a thing, we don't have too much of problem in the regulation in the banking sector as we used to have before now. So the same thing goes in other sectors. Those working in the regulatory agencies are not as smart as those working outside.
You are quite correct. I quite agree with you.
Everywhere, I've worked in 3 different countries and I've read widely. It's almost consistent that the regulators are 1 or 2 steps behind the market. That's consistent. But regulation is dynamic. Are they 1 or 2 steps behind, or 20 or 30 steps? That's what makes the difference. Regulators need to be on constant training. Every quarter, every 6 months, what's going on. They need to have hands-on experience. They can't be people that sit in the office without knowing what's going on. So the regulators need to set the parameters. They are the rule makers. So they set the rules and the parameters within which they can operate. Once you step outside the boundaries, there's a consequence. So you can't keep saying, it will always be that the market operators are smarter, because the market operators are capitalists. They spend money to train. So you as a regulator need to be the one to rein them in.
Yeah, because Prof, remember you usually tell us how that Japan Ministry of
International Trade and Industry.
Yes. That every training going on in the private sector, they're always there to understand what happens in the private sector.
You can't, it's seamless. You can't tell where the private sector stops and MITI begins in Japan. Just like one cross.
So if we can bring that kind of a thing, spend money, not on extra code, but local training. I think that will also help us.
Let me go back to the airline industry. We're trying to bridge the gap of what Nigerians are suffering. For example, every single product they bring in and put it through the airline, we have to pay the double rate. We pay premium rate because the airline coming to Nigeria, they bring in freight, nothing to go out. So they have to factor their cost of going back. So that's the reason why we said, okay, let's look for a way to kind of develop one repair sector so that we can sell it to these people. Thereby, once the aircraft comes into Nigeria and drop the cargo, they will have something to fill to go back. And that automatically will drop the inbound rate for Nigerian people. And this is very achievable. So what we did is like we took a very simple statistics. We want to make 10 million people worldwide, including Nigeria, 10 million people to spend $100 a week on Nigerian agricultural product. That would translate into $1 billion a week and over $50 billion a year. It's quite huge. It's achievable.
Yeah.
Do you understand me? But we, the people, are we ready? Because that's a process you have to go through to get there. Okay, that is the reason why on Global Gap Network today, it's only one company in Nigeria that is on that network. While if you go to Kenya, they have almost 2,000. In South Africa, they have almost 1,900. You go to Ghana, about almost 150. In Nigeria, as of May last year, 0. So that's the reason why we pay high premium rate on cargo freight coming into the country. The same thing goes to sea anyway. So we are working very hard to bridge that gap, and we are making progress.
And then the shipping industry also, they have issue, one crisis after the other.
Regulators,
you know, and then NIMASA, the shipping line, and NPA, you know, and allowing...
Even if you take the concessions, I mean the concessions that were introduced to give more of a private sector flavor, from time to time you get this decision, remove that, put that person, why? You know, one former NPA person, executive, was saying to me, a politician who was responsible for nominating the minister decided, no, we must get those people to come in, remove the people who are there. Okay, we have a contract, valid contract with these people. For X, it has consequences for Nigeria. I don't care what it is. Just remove them, put those people that I want.
Yeah. Anyway, we find that these issues cannot be handled in one episode of this program. And I think we have to stop here. We'll be right back.
That's all on today's show. But be sure to be a part of the conversation by following us on all our social media handles that are displayed on the screen right now. Remember that you can also go on our YouTube channel, that is at Petitos Gang TV, to watch all the episodes that you've missed so far. Till next time, my name is Fumbi Ogunbawo. Take care.